I'm Ryan Smothers, and I'm the in-school bereavement coordinator, where I work with children who've experienced a significant death. And I go into the schools one time a month where I provide peer support groups for children to let them know that they're not alone through their season of grief. In-school is important because children really are known as the forgotten mourners. And at school, a lot of times I work with teachers and school counselors who really notice children's behaviors and notice a change, and then they start doing their assessments and realize that a child has actually experienced a significant death. And the in-school bereavement program allows the child to come into a space where it's not as intimidating, to know that they're not alone. They have other children who have experienced the same significant death. And, I've had children come into my groups who, whenever they come in, they see some of their friends in there, and they're like, oh my gosh, you experienced the same thing I did. And to me, whenever I see those aha moments, that really gives the purpose of why we do the in-school bereavement program, to know that it's not a taboo, to know that it's not as scary as our parents, as our school counselors and teachers. They're really, a lot of times they'll think grief is something that no one really wants to talk about. But the in-school bereavement program allows children to come and just be who they are and know that they're not alone through their season of grief. The children say, I just love coming in here because I'm listened to. And then they look around and they're able to process. And what I love is to see a child, when they look at each other, and they'll say, no one really gets me. No one really understands how, whenever I lost my person, they'll just look and say, no one gets it until you've been there. And, whenever I start facilitating my groups, I'll start out with, I don't fully understand, but what I can do is just sit here and listen. And they'll say, Mr. Ryan, I just need you just to sit there and be silent. And then they'll say there's power in that. I remember I went to a school, and as soon as I walked in, I remember I got the referral, and it was a kindergartner, a little boy. At the very beginning, the office staff shared with me, they said, hey, this student is really going through it. His behaviors have changed, no one really can control him. And I said, well, if you don't mind me asking, what happened? Who in his life had died? His mother was the one who died. And I said, okay, well, that makes sense as to why his behaviors have changed. And I remember I walked out, into the hallway. And he, as soon as he saw me walking up the hallway, he put his arms out. He didn't know me from anything. And he said, you're here because I know, because it's because of my mom. And he said, my mom died. And I said, buddy, hang on one second. I said, let's get back into our group. And I said, then we can talk about mom all day if we want to. And as we were in the group, we always start out as an opening as to, Mr. While we're here, then we go over our group rules. And he couldn't contain it. He started sharing memories about his mom. And the group just listened to him. And there were some older children in there, so, kindergarten through third grade. And it was just amazing to see the group embrace him and acknowledge him. And he put his head on my shoulder, and he just started sobbing. And, in that moment, I just said, you need to embrace that. Embrace the pain. Because that's what's coming out is that behavior. And in that moment, that's why I do what I do every day. Is allow these kids to come in and know that they're not alone in their season of grief.